Hello and welcome back to Timeline Talk. Timeline Talk all about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer mainly in the build up to a Liverpool game. We're not going to cover too much on the game specifically. If you missed any of our coverage on that, tune into Tactical Preview yesterday. Very very good episode. I recommend giving that a watch after this. But yeah, we're gonna discuss personnel. Solskjaer, Fernandes, who can replace Fernandes, whether Solskjaer's job's on the line. It's a very very special episode with some very special guests as well. And I'll introduce them straight after this.
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from Passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Boys, I hope you're all well. It's a pleasure as always to have you on. I think I was just saying beforehand, I think this will be the first Ollie debate we'll have where it's actually I think it's a 50-50 split in terms of the opinions of Ollie. So it'll be interesting moving towards a more balanced channel. Who'd have thought it? But yeah, no, I'll introduce you one by one once I come round to you. But Henry, straight from the off. Actually, I'll say this first. We put a poll out about 1 o'clock on the Twitter account, saying should we lose on Sunday? Obviously, we hope we don't. We don't think we will. But if we do, is he safe or is he getting sacked? And it was very tight, actually, given the 180 votes that took place. 57% said that's it. His job's gone. Henry, would you agree with that?
Well, for starters, I appreciate you calling us special, James. That means a lot. Thank you, sweetheart.
You can decide what I meant by that.
Yeah. Well, context is key. Tough. It's tough. Tough question. And the best answer I can give you is it depends on the manner of win or defeat. It depends on it. If we lose the game and it's 2-1 and we're in the game for most of it and we've got a chance, I think he'll be kept. But if we get battered, he's gone. It's as simple as that for me because, again, we're competing with these teams at the top. The Atalanta game was fantastic, and I tried not to. I got caught up in the emotion, as everyone did. You're celebrating the win; it's amazing. But the day after is always the most important one for me because you get to dissect things and you get to think, okay, like what actually happened in the game, what went wrong, what went well, and that first half. If we had the first half against a top side, a City, a Liverpool, or even, maybe, Villarreal had a similar first half, but the quality isn't there from those two sides. But if we had that against the top side, they'd have been out of sight. It would have been 3 or 4-0 at half time. And you're looking at a position where at most you can get a draw. At most. And yeah, again, as Paul Scholes has mentioned after the game, play like that against Liverpool and you get absolutely annihilated. So I think there's a manner of a defeat, a manner of a win. And the second half was phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, it's phenomenal. They're battling for the manager. You can see that. So for me, it doesn't come down to is there enough desire from the players. Like we've seen that in the second half. It now comes down to has the manager set the team up right? And in that first half, it was a 4-2-4, and Fred and McTominay were on their own. They're on their own. And they're up. You got McTominay trying to drop in to protect the back line, and Fred going a little bit AWOL. And you're essentially up against a whole attacking line with 5 or 6 yards of space on the edge of your own box. So again, it comes down to manner and how things are done. And if the board see positives in the game when they come out, they won't get rid of him. But if they see it as a make or break where this side should be challenging for the title, which it should, and they think, okay, Liverpool and City got a draw. They're similar sides in terms of the results they're going to get throughout the season. are we as good as them? And that's what it should come down to, because top 4 with this side, if we get 4th with this side, it's a bit embarrassing, really. Like, if we're not close, it's a bit embarrassing, really. And this is the start of a big run, isn't it? Huge run for the team, huge run for the manager. And I think if you start off against Liverpool with a poor result, you're only going to get dross throughout the rest of it, because the players will be disheartened, the fans will be disheartened, and there will be murmurings in the ground, which was what I've spoken to someone who was there, and he said he heard that in the first half for the first time under Solskjaer, and that's a little bit concerning.
It is, I suppose. Obviously, the result was the one we wanted. I'll bring up this comment, but when I come to you, Stu, obviously you're a big fan of Ole. We'll keep it positive.
Absolutely.
With your side of things. Jarvis says the first half wasn't bad at all. We created a lot of chances. Could have easily been 2-2 at half time. And I think it does raise a very good point that attacking wise, that was better than any performance I think I've seen us in this season. I get we scored 5 against Leeds, 4 against Newcastle, but the type of attacks and the type of chances and everything really seems to have turned a corner. So I'll ask you, how much time did that win and that performance against Atalanta, especially in the second half, by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Because he's under no doubt that he is under pressure at the minute.
Yeah, I don't think it changed the narrative at all, really. You've got a huge section of the fan base that don't want him. Don't think he can take us to the next level. And they hit everybody up with buzzword managers, Zidane, Ten Hag, whatever. You know, it is what it is. We've done it over the years with players. Oh, we must go after Haaland. We must do this. We must do that. And it's never always the right thing to do. It's been proven in the past. It's not the right thing to do. And there are certain times where I've said on this channel, you have to nail your colours to the mast. And I think it's time for the board to do that. Look, everybody's got their opinion on how football should be played. I suppose what annoys me the most, me and Henry had a really good chat about this a few episodes ago, is the so-called United DNA. And Henry could only speak from his experience of Manchester United, which is, the end of the Sir Alex Ferguson days and where we are today. But the United DNA changes. It's fluctuated ever since the inception of the club. We had in 1977 a brilliant coach, absolute world-class coach, as Alan Tong said last night, revered, and Dave Sexton, but just it couldn't work. He couldn't get his players working for whatever reason. We had Tommy Docherty before that, who had some kind of success. Ron Atkinson after that with a little bit more success. And then you had the beginning of the Sir Alex Ferguson era. And the football was absolutely dire under him at the beginning. It took him 5 years to generate and build a side capable of challenging for the title. And bearing in mind, that had lasted almost 27 years. We're in our 27th year of not winning the title at that time. And what I'm getting at this particular segment is that fans of today have got to understand that Manchester United wasn't born in 1986. It was born way before that. And that you've got to understand how the club has evolved and grown throughout that time. And there are periods in any history or parts of any kind of club where you won't have success. And unfortunately, the Sir Alex Ferguson days, which are absolutely brilliant, now fans are starved of success. Now, old-time fans like myself can cope with it a lot better because I've been there. We've seen it. We understand it. And my message to the fans at the moment is you've got to go through pain. You've got to go through hurt, and it'll eventually will come out the other end. We all know that Liverpool waited 30 years for a title. Now, when I was growing up, Liverpool were the dominant side through the 70s and the 80s. They're absolutely terrific. Won everything. And so that's kind of where I sit with it, really. And I do think that Ollie, he's under pressure. He's under more fan pressure, though, than he is board pressure. And really, fan pressure doesn't matter. It's board pressure that will be the turning point of whether or not Ollie survives or not. I do tend to agree with Henry. I think the manner of how we if we were to lose Sunday, the manner of the defeat would be telling. But you know, I don't think we will lose Sunday. I think we you know, this is the start of something big for this group of players. But ultimately, as well, the players have got to take some kind of responsibility. And I've banged on about this before, and I'll keep banging the drum on this one. Is that there are player mistakes have got nothing to do with coaches and management. Player mistakes are player mistakes. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just up to that player to sort it out, make sure he doesn't make a mistake again. And the other thing I would mention is that the players have got to, and again, James, you'll know I talk about this all the time, talk about application and adaptation and during the match. Players have got to be a bit more clinical themselves. They've got to think more. And we didn't think in the first half. We did create some good chances, and I thought we played quite well first half. I think Jarvis is right. We came back like a team possessed in the second half, obviously, and we went ahead and we won the game. But Atalanta, whether we like them or not, whether we rate them as second tier, third tier, fourth tier, it doesn't matter. A group of professional footballers that are well drilled, know what they're doing, are very, very difficult to beat. Very difficult to beat. And that should never, you should never lose fact of that. As a fan, as a player, as somebody who's interested in the game as a whole, you should never lose that fact that you can step onto a pitch against a team you should beat quite comfortably, and something will click with that opposition, and they become more and more determined. They become more and more dogged. We've had it with Villa. They were the same. We knew what we were going to get into when we played Leicester, that we were going to get absolutely destroyed in the middle, and so it proved. But that's, again, the players know all this. The players knew, because they played Leicester 2 or 3 times, and we've been beaten the last 2 or 3 times. The players knew when they hit the pitch what to expect. You didn't need a coaching session to tell you what Leicester were going to do to you. And we won't need a coaching session to know what Liverpool are going to do to us, because we know where they're going to attack. We know where their dangers are, and we know what they've got to do. So it's up to these group of players, along with the coaches, along with the manager, to sort it out. But it's not, the book doesn't just stop with Ollie, and it just doesn't stop with these coaches. And in fact, Henry kind of sits on the fence with the coaches. Sometimes, I'm not speaking for you, Henry. It's conversations we've had, mate. And you sit on the fence sometimes. Sometimes you're okay with them. Sometimes you're not. And I get all of that. But look, when it comes to games like Liverpool, games like City, games like Atalanta away, you know what you're facing. These players understand what they're facing, and it's down to them, if it starts to go wrong during the game, to fix it. These are professional footballers. Fix it. And so, no, I don't think he's bought him any time, because I don't think there was an issue with time anyway. So that's my take.
I'm glad you ended the response like that, because I'd forgotten what I'd asked you, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, sorry.
You can always rely on you for a bit of filler, but I'll bring you in on this. Really appreciate you joining us and taking the time. Check him out on Twitter as well if you haven't already, and I'm sure most of you will. But it's a really good Twitter account in the United space. But obviously, I like your opinions on Ole, because they're never set in stone. It's very much you will judge what happens game to game and either praise or criticize. Now, I don't know what camp you're in, whether it's Ole in or Ole out or somewhere in between, but say we do beat Liverpool 2-1, how does Ole use that to try and turn the ship around? Or do you think the writing's on the wall for him already and we're past the point of no return?
If we do beat Liverpool, I do believe he'll take the principles out of the game he took from the Atalanta game, and he'll take the ones, obviously the Liverpool, it's hypothetical, we don't know how we're going to perform in that Liverpool game. So he'll take the principles out of that game, and hopefully he just strikes that balance in between where we're not overly offensive, and we are structurally defensively disciplined. When Stu mentioned the formation, or Henry mentioned it, it's because Fernandez is advancing, so it's leaving Fred and McTominay isolated. So it is like a 4-2-4. Even in the second half, it was a 2-4-4, because it was basically Bissaka, McTominay, Fred, Shaw, Rashford, Ronaldo, Fernandez, Mason, Greenwood on the right. That's not sustainable football. It was desperation football second half. I was there in Stretford End singer section. They were fully behind the team, singing. Even during the goals we conceded, they were still singing. Stretford End. I'm not overly emotional when I watch games. I cheered Ronaldo and stuff, and I cheered Sancho, but I'm not overly emotional, but I promise you, Stretford End booed at half time because we all stood up in Stretford End and they were all booing around me. Then I was just having conversations with the people around me, and they were saying, how far can like passion and desire go? As in, like, versus Villarreal, that was meant to be a turning point. But then I was telling people that football's not sustainable. It's going to catch up on you, and it did catch up on you, catch up on us. And then same again on Atalanta. We can take some principles out of the game in terms of intensity, getting first to the ball. I agree with Stu on that element. But from a coaching or tactical perspective, that second half, you can't replicate that second half in terms of 2-4-4. You're not going to play that against Liverpool with Salah, Mane in those positions, vacating all that space. So yeah, I do feel the game on Wednesday did buy them a bit more time. It was toxic at half time. Not for me personally. I didn't even boo. My mates were booing and people behind me were booing, but I didn't particularly boo because it's just not my style. But and even the fans, like on the concourse and in the toilets, they were all talking about different managers and so on. And they're fans from the Stretford End, by the way. So it is in the stadium. People say like the fans on at the ground and in the stadium, at the ground and on Twitter are different. It's not necessarily true because the Stretford End booed. That's just clear evidence right there. So I do, feel it. Biden more time on Wednesday. If he doesn't get a result against Liverpool, he probably may eventually probably get to past Christmas. But again, it's hypothetical, so we'll have to see.
James, your mic, pal.
That was really smooth and everything. I didn't stutter once. That was perfect.
You're actually better silent, mate. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Embarrassment, James, embarrassment.
I'll stick with you. We'll take the hypotheticals out of it then. Speaking purely from opinion, whatever the result is against Liverpool, is like I'll come back to my initial question. Is this salvageable for Solskjaer, or do you think he is past the point of no return and he's sort of lost it in that sense?
With some fans, it's impossible to turn around, but they set their mind up a year and a half ago. I only was Ollie out. First time I was Ollie out was this weekend against Leicester but that was over 2.5 years, and because I felt like we're not progressing as a team. I'm seeing the same mistakes in formation and tactics. I'm seeing the same mistakes in personnel. I'm seeing the same mistakes playing injured players. I saw Maguire against Leicester. I'm seeing the same mistakes, and he's not rectifying that. I'll give him the summer. I thought Varane, it'll make a difference, play a higher line. We'll have Sancho, we'll have more natural width on the right-hand side. And obviously, all of us wanted a centre defensive midfielder. So yeah, what was the question again? Just skip by.
It was in terms of him and where he is with the club. Has he gone as far as he can go, and now he's on a downward slope, or do you think that there's still time for him to turn the results around and the performances, most importantly, because they are going down at the minute?
Yeah, I actually believe I know it sounds naive, and even though I'm Ollie out, I do believe he can still turn it around, because as long as you're in the job, you can turn it around. That's football. If he beats Liverpool, and then I think we got Tottenham with the momentum. We've seen how Ollie can go on these 15-match runs or 20-match runs where we constantly win or we're undefeated, and we'll gather momentum that way. And then maybe at Christmas they look at it again and say, oh, look, we can address our centre defensive midfield position. Can we get a Basuma for 30 million? Can we maybe give him Amad Diallo on loan and maybe 25 million plus? Can we do a deal? So as long as you're in the job, I do believe you can turn it around. Obviously, some fans are just set in stone. I'm not set in stone. I just have my general opinion. I do feel he's reached a ceiling. I feel the squad has outgrown him. I feel the personalities have outgrown him. However, that doesn't mean I support Man United. I support the results of Man United. Man United. I don't support Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I support the results of Manchester United. If Ole Gunnar Solskjaer produces results from Manchester United, I support Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as manager. It don't matter to me. It could be certain players, McTominay, Pogba. If Pogba's underperforming and McTominay's performing weekly, because I like Pogba, doesn't mean I want Pogba in the team. I want McTominay in the team. Do you get what I mean? I put United first.
Yeah, that's the way you've got to be. It really is. It's easy to get blinded by a lot of allegiances. I've felt that myself. But yeah, we're all United fans at the end of the day, aren't we? But I'll come to you next, Henry. The thing that Solskjaer's always had on his side is the players and being liked around the dressing room, and it's got him out of a lot of situations, and it possibly did against Atalanta. Obviously, I think take nothing away from the tactical job they did. But obviously, you were talking a little bit beforehand. Now, I've not read these quotes directly, so I'm going to rely on you to sort of inform us here. But Bruno Fernandes spoke. You were saying somewhat negatively about possibly the tactics or something. So do you want to enlighten us on what that was, and then sort of give us your opinions on what that means?
Well, I don't know the exact comments, but I saw the exact comments. I can't recall them exactly, but it was something along the lines of "there's room for improvement from everyone, from us and from the coaches as well." Now, there's a huge problem with that, and I'm not gonna go out and say Fernandes should be dropped. He's an idiot. Blah blah blah. I'm not gonna do that. But saying that when a manager is under pressure, and saying that coming into the biggest game of the season so far, and probably the biggest game of Ole's managerial career, to be honest, in terms of the context, what happens if we win, what happens if we lose. This is so far the biggest game. I personally think this is bigger than the Villarreal game, and I'm going to make a case in point as to why, and it's purely based on the fact that he's had the summer now, he's got the players, he's got the squad that he wanted. That's the key thing in this. He's got the players that he asked for. In fact, he's got more than he asked for. He probably wouldn't have got Ronaldo if he wasn't on the market. So he's got the players. He's had three. What is it? Two full seasons now, or is it? Whatever it is, coming into his third year, I guess. He's had the money. I know we all moan about the Glazers and whatever, and we will continue to do so because they're arseholes, but he has had the money and he's got the squad. He's got a team to compete, and the pressure is massively on. And Bruno saying that is concerning a little bit. There's room for improvement for every coach. Every coach will admit that, but it's timing.
Yeah.
Its timing is horrendous.
Paul Pogba said something similar. It was against Leicester. Yeah, I think after Leicester.
Yeah.
Something about tactic or something.
Yeah. And the problem with that is it's something that's been pinpointed, not just by fans, but by pundits as well. Something that's been pinpointed and poked at Solskjaer for the last 2 years. Is he tactically, adept enough to win the big games, and not even the big games, to beat the smaller sides, which we seem to struggle against more? So is he capable of doing that? And I think the problem is when you start having a kind of repetitive theme with post-match interviews or interviews with newspapers or whoever it is on a podcast or whatever it is, there becomes a problem where that theme becomes so repetitive that you can't ignore it. And if this keeps continuing, if he keeps the job and they keep saying, "Oh, there's definitely room for improvement," blah blah blah, and the first half of that game, the Atalanta game, just stuck with me. And maybe Fernandes made the comments before that game, maybe he made them after. We don't know. They'll have released them when they felt it was necessary to release them.
Yeah.
Probably at the worst time for us, if I'm honest. They'd have probably gone, release it a couple of days before, give people a time to stew a bit and think about it, and then you go into the game. And players will see it as well. Players will see it and go, hold on a minute, why is one of our biggest players saying this? It's just, horrendous timing. He shouldn't have done the interview. I'm not going to say he shouldn't start whatever. He's a fantastic player. He made a mistake. Mistakes happen. But Ole's only got so many get-out-of-jail-free cards with United fans, and they're running out, if I'm being honest. And I agree with what Stu's saying in terms of there is responsibility on the players' heads. Of course there is. There will always be responsibility on the players. When Lampard left Chelsea, the Chelsea fans turned on the players as well. So there will be responsibility on the players. But I think the kind of tide is slowly shifting just a little bit in terms of people are going, right, we saw the second half of the players. They were, working so hard for him. Maybe it is time to think about, this, that, and the other. It's a combination of everything. But again, we'll all look at the shining examples in Chelsea and think, what could have been if we don't make the correct decisions this season, whether that's keeping him or whether that's him going. but there's a responsibility from everyone. And the best thing to do now is to shut up as a player, if I'm honest. Shut your mouth, do the talking on the pitch. Don't bother with all these nonsense comments. Just play for the manager, play for the club, represent the shirt that you've pulled on in front of that many fans, and do the talking on the pitch, win the games. And they're digging a hole, not for themselves, they're digging a hole for their manager.
Yeah.
And it's not good. It's a terrible look. It's a terrible look on the club as well. A terrible look on the club.
The fans were unbelievable on Wednesday. Unbelievable. I don't go to Old Trafford much, but the constant support was unbelievable. I was looking at my friend. I was like, these fans don't deserve this. Especially in the first. I was looking at him. I go, look, they've all been working this afternoon. They've all come like from the 9 to 5, and they come here on the hard-earned money, and they're not even seeing good football. And we're losing 2-0 at home against Atalanta, who are missing players. They're okay to good team. They're not any Champions League like big name as in your Real Madrids and your Bayern Munichs. So yeah, so the fan do deserve better, but ultimately results will.
Sorry, just quickly. I'll just quickly with that. You're right. You're 100% right. But there's a huge problem in that it's Atalanta.
Yeah,
it's Atalanta. The levels between them and Liverpool at the moment.
Yeah,
they're playing a centre mid at centre back.
Yeah,
Varun is, and they bring on some 21-year-old that has barely played a game for them, and we still look just off.
And we were fortunate, to be honest, because they carried on playing their way. If they sat back on that 2-0 with the 5 at the back and 3 in front and 2 strikers, it would have been much more difficult. They were still trying to go for that third goal in the second half because the wing backs are free all game. I was just looking because I was watching that quietly and like tactically. I could see Bissaka had always took in to like make it like compact centrally, but then there'd be so much space for the left wing back. And then I go, eventually they're going to score through a wing back. And I think it happened on the right hand side where Shaw and Lindelof had a bit of a mix up and they got through that way. It was happening all night. I do feel generally we do struggle against teams with 5 at the back as well, as so against Leicester.
That's where you got to adapt, isn't it?
Stu, let me bring you on this. Let me bring you in on this. It's making me nervous how long you've stayed quiet for. This isn't normal for you. But we'll go back to the Fernandes comments, and I think the Pogba ones before that. Now you're very traditional in your views, and I like you for that. Back in the day, well, not back in the, but obviously the good old days that you speak of so fondly. You know, I don't think this would have gone down too well, would it? So, what are your thoughts on the comments that have come out?
Look, to be honest, Bruno was generalising. That's what players tend to do. What happens with journalism, as me and you are both in the media, so we understand how journos can twist certain narratives and certain words because they have to sell papers, and the Sun are absolutely bob on for doing it. There was a few papers back in the day that would do it as well. We don't know when Henry was right. We don't know when the comments were published or when it was said. The timing has got typical Sun written all over it anyway. But I didn't read too much into it. I saw a bit on Twitter today that Bruno is digging at the coaches. It's one thing as a footballer you never do. But actually, let me be clear about something as well. Another thing as a footballer you do, and the manager expects it, you are able to question. You are able to talk and discuss and put your ideas across. That's what a collective team unit does. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like to Bruno, if Ronaldo isn't there and he's saying, well, why don't we try it this way, or let's try certain things on here. We have to bear something else in mind about a professional club, how a professional club is run. These guys, they're going in, they're playing football 7 days a week, pretty much. Maybe 6 days, they get a day off. But they're in and around discussing football every day. You don't need to tell these players how to play football. They already know it. It's instilled in you as a 6 and 7 year old. These guys have been assigned to professional clubs since they were 6 years old. You don't need to be told how to play football. You don't need to be coached to a level to play football. What you do, you get tweaked. It's conversations about where you should be at any certain time in the pitch. But actually, that comes down to common sense. Now, I asked you the other night when you were playing five-a-side, who told you to stand where? Do you just stand there, look around and wait for your manager to tell you where to move? No, you don't. You do it yourself because you've got two pairs of eyes, pair of ears and 2 feet, which enables you to walk slightly to the left or slightly to the right, where you need to be at any one time. See, we talk about systems all the time. But players, you have to set up to a certain way. But ultimately, when you defend, you always defend as a 4-4-2 or a 4-5-1. That's how you defend. That's how you get into a block. When you're attacking, you don't ever attack in a formation. You attack exactly how that game plays out. You might attack with 2, you might attack with 3, and you might attack with 4. It doesn't really matter. The idea is, in football, to score as many goals as you can. Now, when you look at the Atalanta game, we didn't particularly get it right. I think Ole set us up okay. And the reason, and Waz is right, the reason we play a 4-2-4 and did play a 4-2-4 was because Fernandes was 10 or 15 yards higher up. But we were talking about this last night anyway. And this is why I said to you, we need to get Bruno to be a bit more disciplined. He is our floating player, and he needs to be our floating player because he's our most creative. He can actually be more creative and offer more danger if he steps back those 10 or 15 yards. And what it does, it then gives the likes of Greenwood or whoever's playing up front, it doesn't matter who's playing up front, it gives them more space to operate. And the reason I keep banging on about players is because when I was playing, if it was my mistake, it was my mistake. Okay, if I missed a header and they scored, it's my mistake. It's got F all to do with coaching. It's got F all to do with anything else. Because if you are there and the ball is bouncing by you, or it's the onus on you, it's as simple as that. That's what happens. If you can't give a simple 2 or 3 yard pass, it's got nothing to do with Ollie and the lads on the bench. It's your own fucking fault. It's your fault that you can't play that 2 yards. If you can't spot danger in your segment or the segment in and around you, it's your fucking fault.
Stu, though, all footballers, I agree in terms of application in your area. So when Maguire was making those individual errors, that's on Maguire. But forget that. Obviously, Ollie picked Maguire that game. Shouldn't have really picked him. I think everyone knows that. But generally, in a game situation, if the opposition manager tweaks it, if he, for example, he's playing a 4-3-3, but then he plays a diamond, sometimes footballers are not quick enough to realize that, and they can't adapt quickly in the game, and then the game's taken away from you. It happened somewhat in the Euro final against England. Mancini was taking the game away from Southgate. Obviously, it went to penalties, but the game was getting lost in that extra time, and then it went to penalties, and penalties are lottery. So I do understand. I do agree with application. I do agree with a lot of what you do say, but sometimes these players like Bissaka, for example, and certain players, I even think like McTominay, I don't think they have the IQ to adapt within a game. Yeah. But even the likes of Mason Greenwood, we talk about the defensive structure. Mason Greenwood, Fernandes, and Rashford, they hardly ever track back. Yeah.
So that's a fair comment. I'll agree with that. But you would also agree then, you clearly know football. You clearly know the game. That I was a centre half. So I used to play centre half. So you've got two roles as a centre half, really. You've obviously got your main role as being a centre half, but the other is being able to dictate and help players in front of you. Because where you are, you can see what's happening. You're absolutely right. Players don't suddenly have the IQ, and from the sidelines it should, but it shouldn't take them that long to understand what is happening. And communication is massively key on any pitch. It's hugely key. And one of the issues for the second goal, you were there, weren't you? I'm a season ticket holder, by the way, 27 years, 28 years now, I think, something like that anyway. But when you look at where Maguire was, he was slightly ahead of where he should have been. He was about a yard ahead of where he should have been. And he was obviously, we kind of zonal mark, don't we, or whichever. And I think it was McTominay behind him, and then maybe Shaw, I think, behind him, or one. Yeah. Well, what Maguire was done, and I couldn't quite believe it. He had no idea where the defender was, and if you remember, he tried to adjust his body position, slightly stepped back, and he was off balance. And he tried to make that, and he was off balance, and it was an easy finish for him. And this is where I go about, and this is where I do talk about, it isn't a coaching issue, it's a player issue, because Maguire, for the level of talent he is, a 28-year-old captain of Manchester United, to be slightly off the pace by that 1 yard, it's unacceptable from a player's point of view. Yeah. And if you remember the, I'm going to say third goal against Leicester, the one where the lads ran in behind him, he almost kind of double backed on him. Maguire, for whatever reason, wasn't watching where he should have been. And that's why the player got in behind him. So it's individual mistakes as well. And all I'm saying is, to the fan base, you've got to look at these individual mistakes as well as the overall aspect.
I do agree with that, because it's often simple to say, "Oh, United haven't got a defensive structure." If you actually look in that first half of the Leicester game, we were defending in 4-4-2. Our Sancho and whoever was on the right, they were coming narrow, and then Fernandes and Ronaldo were basically two. Ronaldo wasn't pressing too much, but Fernandes was. So our defensive structure in that game at the beginning was okay. Okay, fans were saying we were on the back foot, but against Leicester, most teams, Chelsea, Arsenal, City, most of them are going to be in the back for the first 10 minutes against City, Leicester City away. But then obviously we know what happened, unravelled after that. But yeah, it is easy to throw buzzwords and taglines, because a lot of these fans, they're very casual. They don't really understand the nuances of the game. So,
those are just a couple of examples I picked out, and I was a centre half, and I love the game, and Henry knows I talk about I play for all the time. But the bottom line is, what annoys me about certain fans and certain Twitter, and you have touched on it there, and I've spoken to Henry and James about this on many occasions, they don't get football. They think they understand football, be it via watching YouTube clips or reading up about it, or even fucking FIFA, but they don't necessarily understand it. And that's my biggest bugbear about why people want Ole removed. Football's about a collective unit. It's about what we do for and all for United. We're all in this together. We've got a real passion about the club, and we do it together. We don't bitch or anything like that. And football's the same. My only hope is that and if Bruno did say that, Henry, over the last couple of days, my only hope is he's trying to use that as a positive to galvanise the team. I've said on many occasions, I'd play in a team we've won 4 or 5-0, and I'd be fucking livid if we hadn't won 7-0 because somebody's missed a sitter. That's the type of level of competitiveness you need from a footballer and players. So, sorry, James.
That's all right. Well, on the topic of Fernandes, then you brought us perfectly onto our next our next subject. Obviously, the news coming out today from Ole's press conference is that Fernandes took a knock in training. He is a doubt for the game. Bearing in mind Ole's allegiances to certain players, I wouldn't be surprised if he's rushed back. But we're going to work on the assumption that he's not playing against Liverpool. I think this will probably be the first game he's missed through injury for United.
Well, James, what's the news on Rashford and Fred then? Do we know?
Rashford's looking likely. They're still going to assess Fred. But yeah, I wanted to have a discussion about who takes Bruno's place, because when you really get deep into it, it is an interesting discussion, because you've got in my mind, three candidates. I'm open to other suggestions as well, but you've got Paul Pogba, Donny van der Beek, and Jesse Lingard, who can all play in that 10 role. I'll come to you first, Henry. Out of those three, who do you think would be best to slot in that 10 role, and why?
Well, right, Donny van der Beek off straight away. I wouldn't even be in that conversation. He's not going to start. There's no way he's not even match fit. He's been on the bench for God knows how long. He's not match fit, so he won't start. It depends on what he wants to do, and here's where I think you've missed out one player, and I think that player's Matic, and it depends on what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants to do. If he wants to sit and play in a deep, low block and counter-attack, and you want someone who's going to spray the passes, maybe Matic is your guy. It might be an outlandish call, but maybe he is your guy, because he's so much better than Fred and McTominay at playing progressive balls through. He reminds me of Carrick more than those other two. I don't trust those other two to start.
It's dangerous, though, Henry. That I know what you're saying.
It is.
Henry, are you saying Matic in the 10 then, with Phil Jones in 6?
No, what I'm saying is he might not even play a 10. He might not even play a 10. He
Might
might
play
just play
4-3-3,
one holding and two central midfielders, which is what he's done before.
Do you know something, Henry? I said last night to James, didn't I, James? I said the best way to go about and start for Liverpool is actually an old-fashioned 4-4-2. But I'm not so sure we've actually got the personnel to do that. And I'm talking about two wingers. You know,
I know what you mean by that, because Liverpool's outlets are the fullbacks.
Yeah.
So if you can pin them back, you pin a lot of Liverpool back.
Exactly right.
I think it could come down to. I think he'll go with some sort of 4-3-3, whether that's a 4-2-3-1, which is essentially a 4-3-3 with the way that we play, or it's a 4-3-3 with one holding and two in front. I think that could be a more plausible option with McTominay and Pogba in front of Matic, because you've got more stability, especially with the fact that McTominay cannot play that role. That's my concern. He can't play. He played it on his own against Villarreal, and we were lucky. Like, honestly, we were so lucky. Again, I was there. We were so lucky not to be 3 or 4 down at half time. He cannot play that role, and because he doesn't have the discipline. And this is what I don't get. Michael Carrick is in that coaching staff. I know we mentioned about player responsibility. He should be drilling that role into his head every single day.
No, I agree with that.
I don't think McTominay has the ability, though. I don't think he has the ability to do it, because I was watching, because obviously I was at the game, I was just watching McTominay and Fred. I was seeing that every time centre backs had the ball, they're going to Pasako, they're going to Shaw, they're going around McTominay and Fred. They were never punching it into midfield, and they were going from there. That's when Pogba came on second half. You might have seen, like, on TV, made 1 or 2 runs, or he switched it to the left, because McTominay, he was either not asking for the ball, or he was making a run, like, going forward. And it was either the ball was going to Fred, but McTominay was hardly receiving it in a deep lying position. So I just don't think it's his natural game. And I do actually think it's a bit unfair to put him there. So I do agree in the box to box.
It's not his natural game, and I completely understand that, because he used to be a striker for the youth side. So he's been progressively moved back as he's gone along. So in your brain, when you're a youth player, and I know people say players can change, etc. His idea of football is to be more attacking than he is defensive. So I think there's a problem there in the wiring, in what he's been taught to do as a youth player and what he's being told to do now. There is a problem. But you've got the guy there who played the role for his whole career, and he's the expert. So someone has got to play the role, and it can't really be Matic. Matic is the best at it, but he's got no legs. So the problem is you're trying to find a balance of whether you put McTominay in there and you sacrifice a couple of elements of his game, or you put Fred in there and, again, sacrifice a couple of elements of his game, or you have less legs in midfield and you put Matic in there. And he struggled against Leicester, and the reason why was because he was getting bypassed so easily, because in the second half the game opened up and he looked uncomfortable.
If you put Matic in there, which I don't disagree with, by the way. I mean, you know, Henry, I'm not a Matic fan. I think he's too one-dimensional for me. He's left foot. That's all he is. But he has the ability to punch a progressive pass through. And you're right. But I am going to throw the Donny. You're right, by the way. This is fabrication, because Donny's not going to make it. But I actually believe, I know it's not proven. It's not proven either way, by the way. It's not proven he can. It's not proven he can't. That Matic, Pogba and Donny would be a really good 3 for us against Liverpool. When you look at what they've got and what Donny can offer us, because Donny will sit those 10 or 15 yards we desperately need Bruno to do at this point in time against Liverpool. But he's got the ability and a calmness, a better calmness actually than what Matic does, and that's to hold the ball and drop it short when we need it. He'll also be there for Wan-Bissaka, and I don't know. Just say it's Greenwood, because I don't know who's going to play top right. I mean, that's going to be a discussion we'll have to have, because I'm not so sure it's a match for Greenwood, because he's got to cover Wan-Bissaka. But what I'm saying is Donny are playing nice little triangle in and around from our right back to our wide forward, whoever that may be. He's got the ability and he's got the aptitude to do it. Now, you're absolutely right, lads. We know he's not going to get a look in. So what I'm saying is a bit of an irrelevant conversation. But in answer to James's question, that's where I think he should be focusing on this weekend. And I think you are sorry, bud.
I think it'll come down to energy in midfield. He needs to be able to. We need to run more than them. I'm sorry, if you don't run more than Liverpool, you're not going to win that game. It's as simple as that, and that's why Lingard will probably be chosen.
Yeah, conventional wisdom is that if Fred is available, he'll probably play McFred.
Yeah,
he'll shoehorn them in.
Yeah.
Now, we all know as fans, we don't like it. They've been our most progressive option. And you know as well as I do, lads, I don't like any of our midfield three. But I'll touch on something Henry said, because I brought it up. You may remember this, James. I brought it up a while ago with Axel Tuanzebe. And I said that when you look at our central defensive options, when we were linked with Varane at the time, and we just bought him, and I said if I was Tuanzebe, I would have tried to reinvent myself as a right back. He's played right back a couple of times, but sometimes as a footballer, you've got to look at your options and opportunities and where you can slide into a side. And if you can't, nobody can tell me that there isn't an opportunity for Donny or Fred or McTominay to actually work and fucking make themselves a six. You know, we're crying out for a real holding midfielder, a six, and these guys have got the attributes as footballers to be able to do it, and yet nobody's taken that mantle and saying, look, that's what I'm going to focus my game on now. I'm never going to get in as a 10 at United because of Bruno. I'm not going to get in there. You're sorry, and Lingard. I'm not going
to both more adept as well. They need to. This is their career. They need to get their act together. This is. So I'm not going to get in as
an 8. So let me work as being a 6. Now, Donny played. I know the Eredivisie is a weaker league, so I'm not comparing eggs for eggs, apples for apples. But he played 13 times for Ajax in the 6. 13 times. Now, so that says to me, why isn't he going to Wally and saying, look, mate, we've got a problem here at 6. Try me. Give me 3 games. So I get on. You'll win some and lose some in those 3 games, and people will criticise him, but they'll see his attributes. Yeah. And I think Donny, if he's got any aspiration to saying, that's what I would be doing. If I was Donny, that's what I would have done. I
think he's done it though. On that Rio Ferdinand podcast, he didn't mention that he could play in the 6. He even mentioned that at Ajax he can do it. I just thought
I didn't see that. I haven't seen that, but I've seen him play a couple of times. I think he played 13 times, 14 times. Could be wrong.
He either played right over pivot. I'm not sure if he played as a single pivot, but he played with Frankie de Jong. So he is capable of playing in that position. We even saw in the friendly against Everton. Albeit a friendly, but you can still see the attributes, and you can still see what qualities a player can show in that position. But I think the Donny boat, I'll be honest, I think it's Sale. I think it's like the Eric Bailly boat. Like he's picking a half fit or anything Maguire over Eric Bailly against a Leicester side, against when you know there can be runners in behind, and Vardy and Bailly normally have like good tussles, and Bailly tends to get on top of him as well. So I think Bailly's gone as well. So
it depends, doesn't it? It depends. Surely it depends largely on this weekend, and because of the manager, because we've seen players before who've been out of the picture. Jorginho is one of them, ironically, and he's now in the list for the Ballon d'Or. So
he won UEFA.
And Lampard never played him. Lampard disliked him. He cast him out. He cast him aside.
If it is a change of manager, obviously it gives a new lease of life to any footballer. We've seen that previously in even like post Mourinho reign, when it was the Herrera, Matic, Pogba. We saw Pogba, he had a new lease of life because he was playing in that left-hand role where he could advance, and then Matic and Herrera were former 2. And obviously with the dynamic of Herrera alongside Matic, Herrera can push out and press, and then Matic just has to cover. He don't have to like cover too much because Herrera's doing his pressing for him. So it's even like similar in football where Vidic would attack the header and Rio will come across. So it's easier type of defending. That's why when people say City don't concede much goals, they don't concede much goals because the centre backs hardly have to defend. They're only going to have to defend 1v1s, but to even get to that situation is hard because the front forward line pressing you, the midfield, they might even make a tactical foul. By the time you reach John Stones, he's basically covering. He's just covering, shifting across to the right back area, covering. That's all. So, yeah, that's my view on that. In terms of midfield, I think Donny's out of the equation, to be honest. I don't think he's match fit. So then we've. I think Lingard could be a potential option. I'm not sure. I'd probably play if Fred's fit, I'd probably play McTominay, Fred, and Pogba. To be honest, I'll have McTominay holding. Fred will be how we saw him against Atalanta second half in his box-to-box pressing role, and then we've got Pogba, who's going to be able to roam around a little bit more.
Play free, yeah.
As a three, it is similar. Fred's got those Herrera qualities, and then matches and Pogba.
I think that's what it will be if he's fit. If he's fit, Fred, I think that's how it will be. I think he'll do that. I think I'll go with McFred, and I think I'll go with Pogba, and he will play 3 up top. Yeah, but it depends. I
think he should play Sancho as well on the right. I think he has to play.
I said this last night, didn't I, James? That I would go with Sancho on the right, Rashford on the left, because I think there'll be a better cover for Wan-Bissaka and Shaw.
I think he's got to play defensive, though, isn't he? He's got to play. If he goes toe to toe like he did in the first half against Atalanta, we will lose. Like that's just he's got to sit back in this game, and I hate watching us sit back.
I think you'll see a different. You'll see a different approach, Henry.
Against them is probably the best way to win because their fullbacks push so far up that you've got space.
It was interesting. People were jumping on Scholes' comments, and I said last night, Henry, that we won't play the same way. Be a different type of play. Same against City. Be a different type.
Concerning, wasn't it a little bit worrying when you're seeing like I'm not saying he will do it. He won't do it against Liverpool. But it's a little bit concerning when you think that game was really important, really pivotal. Lovely.
No, the thing about, and I say it a lot, and I'll say it again. The thing about it is sometimes you can't legislate for the opposition. However much you try, and however much you look, and however much you see, you can't legislate for it. And I'll give you a quick example. Do you remember Dan Juma for Bournemouth? Absolute waste of space.
Well, it's good in the Championship.
Yeah, but Emery realised that Aaron Wan-Bissaka couldn't play, and he targeted Dalot. He absolutely targeted him, and because Dalot's not a what I would call a general defender, he can defend, but he's nowhere near good as one-on-one as a Wan-Bissaka, for example. He gets his position wrong. When you've got a winger like Danjuma, and they'll just push. You've got to knock him out. You've got to hit Danjuma hard. As a right back, if he's coming at you, you've got to hit him hard. Give away a free kick, get yourself on a yellow card. It doesn't matter. You've got to deter somebody. Now, most players will say, what do you want a yellow card for? You've got to put a marker down, and that's what Dalot should have done. It's one thing that Wan-Bissaka's really, really good at, right? You beat me once, you won't beat me fucking twice. Just once. You get one shot at me, pal, and that's it. And if Dalot could add that to his game, he'd be a better current right back than what Wan-Bissaka is because he's better at attacking.
Yeah.
But he can't risk Dalot on Sunday. He just can't risk it because of the way that Robertson will target our right. That's why he needs a Sancho in, and that's why I don't think Greenwood's right for this game, unfortunately.
They're not the problem, though, fullbacks. I genuinely don't believe they're going to be a problem. I think the biggest problem is going to be Firmino in this game. His positional sense, he doesn't play as a traditional striker. He drops in between centre half and centre mid. And with those two dingbats in midfield, with McTominay and Fred, if they start, their positional awareness is horrendous. So he'll be having a field day in front of the centre halves, especially without Varane as well, who won't be able to mark him tightly, who's a bit quicker.
This is where Matic may or could work. Not on pace, because don't forget Firmino's not rapid by any stretch of the imagination.
No, he's smart. He's a good footballing brain. Yeah, so is Matic as well. Yeah.
Matic has got a good footballing brain. He's too one-dimensional for me. He needs to work on his right foot. But there's no point telling a 32-year-old or 33-year-old to work on your right foot. He should have done that years ago. But Matic might work against Firmino. But if he doesn't, you are right. Firmino is a danger man. Look, you know what Salah's going to give you. You know what Jota's going to give you. I fucking hate Jota anyway. He always scores against us, doesn't he? Even when he was at Wolves, he would always score against us.
Is Mane fit? I don't know.
You what? Sorry, I don't know.
He is, yeah. Mane's fit. The only two players who are doubts are Thiago and Curtis Jones.
Hasn't he dropped Mane for Firmino at the minute?
No, I think he's starting. He's had a really good start to the season.
No,
I'd be surprised if they drop him.
It's usually Firmino and not Jota, Firmino, Mane, and Salah, which it was before. I think they've gone back to that now.
So they've taken Jota out of the equation, have they?
Yeah, he wasn't scoring enough, and when Firmino came back, he bagged a hat trick or something.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but that's good for us because Jota always scores against us, doesn't he? But look, whoever plays in our, I don't know if there's an outside chance Varane might play because he's training on the grass, isn't he?
He won't play. Yeah, he won't play. I think he'll have learned from last week with Maguire. You don't stick someone who's not match fit into a game like that. That was a huge error. I know Maguire made the mistakes himself, but he was so clearly not ready. He'd been out for a month, and you just can't stick a player back in there and expect positional way. He looked lost, and you've got to build him up. And I think that was a huge lesson in the sense that he's tried it before with players. Rashford playing last year, and he got away with it because Rashford got a few goals. But I think with a defender, it's bad news because one slight mistake from a defender and you're a goal down.
I mean, they've not really come out and said exactly what's wrong with Varane, have they? I mean, they were suggesting it was a slight groin strain, not a tear, but a slight groin strain. So I don't know. I've seen him training. He's been on the turf. He's back training on the turf.
He's like Pogba. He's got long legs, and again, that's the majority of the weight and the pressure goes through them, but that's why Pogba's usually out for so long with muscle injuries.
Although, to be honest, I'm going to get slaughtered for this. He's been above average, but nothing yet.
He's been better than Lindelof.
I think he's been good.
I
think Varane's been good because you got to take into part. Bissaka's form hasn't been good. The midfield has been exposed in the back four. Maguire hasn't been good this season. Shaw hasn't been good. So it's Varane. I've seen him even in Varane in a lot of games. It's not necessarily someone that will get you a stat. That's like it'll go on the stat pad, like as in like tackle or.
I don't like stats. I don't like him.
But I've seen a lot of times in game, like his positional sense, or how he covers around for the fullback, or how his step in. As in, like, cover the front post. A lot of those don't necessarily go down as like good stats, but when you watch him, I've been impressed.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. I look, it was always going to take time anyway. He was never going to come and hit the ground running. You have to bear in mind you've been playing alongside the side of Ramos for 10 years and Pepe, absolute masters of shithousery. Love him as defenders, but he's getting that. I think he's going to be really, really important for us come January onwards. I think that's when you'll see the best of Varane from January onwards. Because it takes time.
It's the mental side as well. You've got as McTominay and Fred. You got that guy behind you, the guy that's won a World Cup. He's won multiple Champions Leagues. He knows his positional awareness. I'd say is better than Lindelof's anyway, just by watching the way that I know he made a mistake in the Villarreal game, which was bad. But,
Newcastle made a mistake at Newcastle as well.
But he makes less errors than Lindelof, and he looks more calm on the ball as well. I know Lindelof can play his world.
Aerially, he's underrated as well. Aerially, he's pretty good.
He is aerially underrated. Yeah, I'll agree with that. I was quite surprised. I didn't. When you're in the Spanish league, you're not really put under pressure aerially for aerial duels and things like that nature. It's more of a technical game, isn't it? But no, I was open in the summer about him coming. Would he improve us? Wouldn't he improve us? I mean, most people say anything's an improvement on Lindelof. Lindelof isn't as bad as people think, actually. He's a solid pro. He's a solid professional. But what tends to happen with a centre-half combination is if one's having a bad game, fuck me, does it rub off on the other? Trust me, it's happened to me on more than one occasion. If my partner's had a bad game or I've had a bad game, he's had a bad game as well. It's weird how that really does rub off. But I'm looking forward to Sunday, though. I'm actually looking forward to Sunday. I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Varane and Sancho, they've came into a team that's not really been firing. It's not been a confident team. It's been disjointed. We've had, I think it's 7 or 8 different partnerships in central midfield. So even what's in front of him, he's not necessarily know what he's getting. And the Maguire, if we're all honest, he has been pretty poor this season. And Shaw's been pretty poor, and he got like a bit of a knock against Villa or prior to Villa. And even when we touched on that Delors point earlier, even in that game, so the application of Delors, he should have performed better against his winger 1v1. So I agree with that. However, in that game, McTominay was sitting and Pogba and Fernandes were advanced. They were playing as 2 high number 8s. So in that game, for me, Ole should have quickly made a change. He should have gone back to a pivot, put McTominay right of the pivot, Pogba left of the pivot, and Fernandes as 10. So then McTominay can cover across with the low and double up on the winger. But he just left him exposed all game. And then Mason Greenwood on the right wing, he wasn't coming back either. So it was the low basically 1v1 all night, and that is unfair.
No, I agree. And that's why I get wound. Sorry, Henry. I'll be quick. And that's why I get wound up with player responsibility and how fans don't see that. Because to me, if you're Dallo, you should be screaming and shouting at McTominay. You should be screaming and shouting at Greenwood, or McTominay should have the common sense to see what's happening and deal with it. Or Varane should be, shoveling McTominay across. It's all about communication, and that's sometimes why I get frustrated when you see I call them Twitter coaches, online, because most of them just get a coaching manual out on YouTube or whatever and look up and then start copying and pasting because they don't have an understanding of football. Now, what you're talking about there isn't rocket science; it's fucking basic. It's just a basic awareness of what's happening in and around you. That's all that is. So, and that's why I get wound up. And when you think about it, Ole should have been at that particular time. He should have been out in the technical area, screaming also, get in, or feeling somebody should have been doing that. They don't do it enough for me. We know that. I think, I'm not critical of Ole because I have been critical of him, but I just think that where we are currently and where we might be in 18 months, I think he's slightly different. I think he's got the wherewithal to move us forward. And I just think if we pull the trigger, we keep changing every 3 years, you'll never get any type of continuity. Now, look, don't get me wrong. You won't see another 26-year or a 22-year. You won't see another Fergie. You won't see another Wenger. I think Dyche is the leading one now. He's about 10 or 11 years at Burnley. But you'll never see a 10-year manager again. But you should start to see a 5-year manager because you're going to need 5 years. And I think we changed Van Gaal after 2, Mourinho after 2. So Ole's outlasted them by 1 year. It just needs that extra year or 18 months. And if
Ole's on his third season, I won't comment against fans where they say give him the entirety of the season. That's fair, but at the end of the season, he should justifiably be judged because he got
no problem with that. I've got no problem with that. I really haven't. And I think in 18 months, we'll see a difference. Now, when Ole was given his contract, I don't know, a couple of years ago, or last year, whenever it was, I said he needed 5 years. And I stand by that. But I equally stand by he should be judged at the end of this year.
I think there's a problem though. There's an inherent problem, and the biggest one is fear of getting left behind, and that is because City, Chelsea, and Liverpool they're performing to that level constantly every week, and I understand poor results happen. I completely get it, but it was usually last year. It was down to the squad. There was little gaps in the squad that we needed to fill. And you always want a manager to put their own blueprint into the side, to get their own players and to build a squad. And I think there's a problem in the sense that he's got those players now. He's got the ones that he asked for. And I know he prioritised centre-back and right winger over central defensive midfielder. Again, that's not on the owners. That's on him. He got given a budget and he said, I'm going to get these players. And he would probably give them reasons why. Go and get them. We got Varane, Sancho, and Ronaldo. And
in a way, it's Ronaldo. Ronaldo's a killer for him.
But in terms of what
Ronaldo's here for.
But in terms of the windows that you can have as a team, that's one of the best you're ever going to see. Just because of the amount of talent and quality you've been brought in.
It takes time, though, Henry. It does. I know people say it, and it's a get out card, and I don't mean it like a get out card. I'm not giving Ole any kind of leeway here, but it does take time to integrate these players, and that's why I think And I know what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you, by the way. But it does take time, and that's why I always say, let's look at January, just to see where we are in January. We'll know where we are in January. Now, whether or not he tries to get a central midfielder in January, I don't know. I think in the summer, whatever happens, we'll have to move on some of the deadwood we don't necessarily need. Your Lingard, your Dallows. We've been through this before. All of us have. We know who they are, and we are going to have to move those on. But the trouble with football squads is it's rotational. The one for me, which I find completely unforgivable, is the non-use of Donny. When you've got a player of talent and you just don't use him, that's where I do find that unforgivable. I can't get my head around that. But
there's a frustration, and if the one event hadn't happened, then we probably wouldn't be saying, Ollie's got limited time. And that's Lampard getting sacked at Chelsea because he got sacked. And they were dreadful under Frank Lampard. They were awful to watch. And they bring a manager in. And I'm not saying this is going to happen every time you bring a manager in, but they brought an experienced manager in and they won the Champions League. Yeah. And we are crying. The fans are crying out for a trophy. I know that the younger fans is what I'll say, because I've been speaking to my dad about it, and he's saying, give it time, But even he who watched the same as you, he's like 20 years older than you, so he watched the same stuff happening. Even he at the moment is thinking, it's just the football just doesn't look right, and it's just because of the way that we play. I don't care. Results are important; they're critical. But when I see us lining up, I don't know what we're going to do every week. Week in, week out. I know what City are going to do. I know what Chelsea are going to do. And I know what Liverpool are going to do. I still don't know how we're going to perform or what system we're going to play, because he still hasn't found his best team. And it's been like...
It's a fair comment, that. It's a fair comment, that. I mean, I think we're just in a small window at the minute where results matter more than how we get there.
They do, yeah.
We're just a very small window of these next 3 games that are just... We just need wins.
Going back to the key point, this is one game, one really bad result in this weekend's game, and that is curtains for the lot. And it's everybody will be back on his back again. He'll know, and the players will know that they've got to win. But you would hope, to be fair though, Henry, our detest for Liverpool, and it's the biggest game in club football. I don't care what anyone says. In fact, it's a weekend of it, because I think we've got the Ajax PSV game going on this weekend. We've got the El Clasico, haven't we, going on this weekend? I think it's Milan Juventus or something along those lines. It's PSG Marseille. It's ourselves. It's a hell of a weekend for great games. And I still think Manchester United Liverpool is by far the biggest. Yeah, it is. But we need to win. And we need to win.
Yeah. One last comment on the game on the weekend. It is a critical game, because then when you hear that term 6-pointer, this is like literally a 6-pointer. If we win, we're 1 point behind Liverpool. If they win, they're 7 points ahead of us. That is a 6-point gap, literally. And it's so crucial. I think it's crucial to Ollie. I think it's crucial for the football club. I think even being on Sky itself, I think it makes a change. I don't think fans think of that dynamic, because if the game was on BT, you'll have Rio might give him a bit more time. But then when it's Carragher, Roy Keane, Souness, it's going to flare up in the studio, and the pressure, the momentum. And so from seeing what happened on Wednesday, the Stretford was booing and fans were talking between themselves about new managers and so on. I feel that if we lose to Liverpool, it being Liverpool itself, especially in a manner, if we lose when Moyes towards the end, when he lost 3-0 or something.
Mourinho.
If it goes to
Mourinho off as well.
Yeah, Mourinho. If it goes to like that, I think it's going to be ugly, to be honest. I think the fans will still sing towards the end, because United fans do generally respect their manager. But I think it's Ollie's biggest game in his tenure.
It's the biggest game of football, and there's a reason why.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Sorry, James.
I cannot wait at all. That's not a problem at all. I've asked a few questions. I say that at the end of every show. That's how I like it to be. I like just listening to knowledgeable people speak about Man United. I'm basically just a viewer at this point.
Fucking hell, he's on the wrong channel then to listen to knowledgeable people, isn't he? Fucking hell, us three. We haven't got a clue what we're talking about.
Stu, I thought you were one of the few people in this country who played football before.
I don't think so. I don't know where that's come from. That's
There must be there must be at least 12 people that have
Who
played
mentions
football.
that? Like Carl Froch mentions Wembley.
Beating George Groves in front of him.
80,000. Do you know? I know I mention it a lot, but it's where I understand the game. You see, the most is through my own experiences of playing and the mistakes that I've made while playing, and there was plenty of them. Don't get me wrong, plenty of mistakes. And my experience of how we've come together as a team and how we've overcome adversity, just on certain games where we've come back and we've won.
No,
and
it is important because when you play yourself, you know the dynamics. You know if you're a centre back, you know what a full back should do. Come round, you know what the centre mid, because you've been there in that situation yourself. Yeah,
and that's the only way I talk. And I make James laugh a lot because I say, you know what I say about this, and I fucking hell, Stu, shut up.
Golden.
We
underrated.
We wouldn't have you any other way, mate. At
Thank
all.
you.
But I'll go off your comment that I haven't spoken in this episode, so I'll give you a final comment. I'll round up the episode. We'll go back to the title. Is this make or break? In my opinion, it's not. I think the result of this is irrelevant. I think football is such a cliche now, but football is a results-based business, and business is the main word. Money talks in football. We saw it with Jose Mourinho when he was sacked. As soon as the board worry that there's not going to be Champions League football next year, that's when the sacking will come. No individual results or styles of play or anything like that are going to force this board's hand other than not getting Champions League football. I think if by some hideous disaster we don't get Champions League football, I think as soon as that's mathematically, or just before it's mathematically confirmed, that's the only time we'll see the end of Ole. Not that I want that to happen
James,
at all. I'm just giving
one
my
quick question
opinion
for
on it.
you. After Super League, did that change? Do they have to listen to the fans now?
No,
no, I don't. That's what I mean. It's got the fans' input have nothing to do with their decision making. It will be as soon as they're not getting that set amount of Champions League money, that's when they'll really panic and go, we need someone who is going to get us that money. So whether you're Ole in or Ole out, he is not going anywhere until there's a threat of us not making Champions League. Whether you're for that or against that, who really cares? Why are we here? I'll leave you with that. I hope that was enough of a contribution for Stu's liking. So yeah, we'll round it off there. Thank you to you three. It's been fantastic having you on. Waz, especially, thanks for joining us. I know you don't have much time nowadays, but I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Also hope that everyone in the comments enjoyed it. We had a lot of new comments, new people in the comment section, which is really good to see. If you did enjoy it by any chance, I know it's quite hard, but if you did enjoy it, be sure to like and subscribe. It will go a massive way to helping such a small channel as our own. And we'd massively appreciate it as well. You'd make us do a very, very happy man, and who doesn't want that? But yeah, exactly. Without any further ado, we'll have loads of coverage from the Liverpool game. Tune in straight after. There'll be an instant reaction show. Win, lose or draw, we'll be there. So tune in for that. Don't miss it. And we'll see you next time.